We're stepping back in time today to witness, well, one of the most profoundly shifting moments in human history. We're looking at a story that's not just about military strategy, but about immense, undeniable spiritual weight. We are going to explore that exact moment where the staggering scale of a global superpower collided head-on with something completely intangible, yet infinitely stronger: the Battle of Qadisiyyah. So, you might be wondering, how exactly did a single poorly dressed soldier manage to completely shatter the arrogance of an established global superpower? It's a phenomenal question, right? This whole explainer is really a deep dive into that profound clash between immense material wealth on one side and absolutely unshakable faith on the other. It's an underdog story of epic proportions, and looking closely at how this psychological and spiritual battle unfolded gives us incredible insight into the very events that shaped our world. Chapter 1: Clash of Two Worlds. The contrast on this battlefield was frankly almost unbelievable. On one side, you have the Sassanian Empire. Now, these guys essentially ruled half the known world at the time. They rolled in with a massive, highly equipped, modern army of over 100,000 troops, all led by their formidable commander, Rustam. And facing down this imperial machine, a vastly outnumbered Muslim army of only 300 soldiers, under the command of Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas. Now, from a purely material standpoint, this shouldn't even be a contest. The Sassanians had the numbers, they had the weapons, they had the immense wealth. But as we'll see, wars are not always decided by what you can just hold in your hands. Chapter 2: A Psychological Trap. Okay, let's dive into this. The Sassanian commander, Rustam, he knew exactly who he was dealing with. Or, well, at least he thought he did. Before a single sword was even drawn, he made a very calculated move. He invited a Muslim envoy over, but definitely not for peaceful diplomacy. This was straight-up psychological warfare. He transformed his dimly lit imperial court into a blinding, overwhelming display of worldly wealth. We're talking solid golden thrones brought right into the tent. The floors were completely covered in the thickest, most expensive velvet you could imagine, layered with endless, sprawling, exquisite silk carpets. He really wanted this envoy to walk in, take one look at the unimaginable opulence of the Sassanian Empire, and just be totally paralyzed by fear and a sense of inferiority. The plan was to defeat them in the mind, long before ever having to crush them on the battlefield. Chapter 3: The Fearless Envoy. But the Muslim commander, Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas, he completely understood the game being played here. And his countermove? Absolutely brilliant. He didn't send a grand minister, he didn't send some wealthy general draped in jewels to try and match the Persians. Nope. He sent Ribi bin Amir, an ordinary, poor, yet utterly fearless soldier. Just picture the scene for a second. Imagine these heavily armored elite Persian commanders watching him approach. He rides up on a very small, honestly unimpressive horse. His sword is wrapped in a torn cloth scabbard, and his shield, it was simply made out of raw camel skin. This was the man sent to face the commander of half the world. The Persian guards were absolutely stunned. His appearance just defied all of their imperial logic. At the entrance to this grand tent, the imperial guards naturally demanded that he leave his horse and his ragged weapons outside before stepping into the presence of the great Rustam. But Ribi, he just looked those elite guards dead in the eyes and said, with total, unwavering calm, "I didn't come by choice. Your commander called me. If I can't go in like this, I will leave." There was no negotiation here, zero intimidation. The absolute conviction radiating from this man was so intense that the guards, who were totally accustomed to absolute submission, actually backed down. And Rustam, perhaps out of sheer curiosity or maybe a creeping sense of dread, actually allowed him to enter exactly as he was. Chapter 4: Shattering the Illusion. What followed was a historic moment that literally no superpower of that era had ever witnessed. Ribi refused to dismount. Instead, he rode his small, dusty horse directly onto those priceless silk and gold carpets. The hooves of his horse immediately began muddying and ruining the most expensive fabrics in the entire world. And when he finally did dismount, in an act of just audacious defiance, he tied his horse directly to one of Rustam's precious, heavily embroidered velvet pillows. As he walked toward Rustam's golden throne, he didn't bow, not even a little. Instead, he used his spear like a walking cane. With every single step he took, he dug that spear right into the ground, violently tearing through the exquisite silk. Every deliberate action sent one crystal clear message: your wealth, your gold, your silk, it means absolutely nothing to me. Sitting up there on his golden throne, watching this completely ordinary soldier effortlessly destroy his massive display of power, Rustam was actually shaking inside. The historical accounts tell us that the sheer, unbothered confidence of this poor soldier deeply unsettled the imperial commander. His grand psychological strategy had just completely collapsed in front of him. Bewildered, and with his arrogance severely shaken, Rustam looked at Ribi and asked a terrified question. Why have you people come here? Chapter 5, A Message of True Freedom. Now the answer Abiyavan Amir gave forms the true emotional and spiritual core of this entire historical narrative. You see, it wasn't an answer about conquering land, or acquiring gold, or even seeking revenge. Ribi stood before that throne, without a single trace of fear, and he said, Allah has sent us so that we may take humanity out of the slavery of mankind and into the slavery of Allah. Out of the narrowness of this world into the vastness of this world and the hereafter, and out of the oppression of false religions to the justice of Islam. He was literally telling the ruler of an empire built on the subjugation of human beings that their mission was one of absolute spiritual liberation. It's just breathtaking in its scope. Ribi looked around at all this gold and silk, and he called it narrow. To him, an empire's wealth was just a tiny, suffocating prison compared to the vastness of faith and the hereafter. He spoke of bringing justice to a place where there was only oppression. Chapter 6, The Fall of Arrogance. This right here, this was a true spiritual victory. It's what happens when the absolute conviction of faith permanently shatters the arrogance and materialism of an empire. Upon hearing Ribi's majestic, fearless response, Rustam was left completely speechless. He had no counter-argument, his wealth had utterly failed to intimidate, and his power had failed to coerce. In that exact moment, before the clash of swords at Qadisiyyah even began, the psychological and spiritual foundation of the Persian Empire's pride was just turned to dust. And honestly, it leaves us with an incredibly powerful question to reflect on today, as we navigate a world that is so often obsessed with material success. When you are stripped of all your worldly possessions, your titles, and your wealth, what is the strength of your conviction? What is the true condition of your heart?